도장 찍었으니 됐소.
When the charming and handsome Seo unexpectedly gets caught in love with a girl from the past, how does their love story unfold? Let's dive straight into the storyline. Kang Tae-ha is a handsome young man after both of his parents passed away. His grandfather, known as Mr. Kang, wanted his grandson to inherit the company, which is known to operate in the arts and fashion industry. Tae-ha's assistant, named Hong, informed him of his schedule for the day, which included having to perform a fake marriage in front of Mr. Kang. Some time ago, in the past, in front of his beloved grandfather, Tae-ha expressed his plan to marry a girl named Vanessa. Vanessa is someone he planned to hire to conduct the marriage for just one day. Meanwhile, Mr. Kang was seen on his way to the hotel where Tae-ha's wedding would take place. Tae-ha was getting ready to put on his wedding suit. A few hours before the wedding, they received bad news that Vanessa couldn't be reached.
네, 이해가 됩니까 이게? 이해가.
In the midst of his panic, because Mr. Kang was about to arrive at the hotel, Tae-ha was startled by the appearance of a girl who was nearly drowning in the swimming pool. Tae-ha asked Hong to help her immediately, but it turned out Hong couldn't swim. So Tae-ha jumped in to save the girl. After successfully bringing her out of the water, Tae-ha intended to call an ambulance. But the girl regained consciousness by coughing up a lot of water. The girl's identity was still unknown, but after opening her eyes, she immediately hugged Tae-ha and called him her husband. Tae-ha thought the woman was not in her right mind or her memory was disturbed after the incident. Meanwhile, the girl in the white dress tried to remember the previous events. Flashback to the Joseon Dynasty era. It turns out the girl who drowned was named Park Yeonwo. She was known as the butterfly girl who created dress designs that instantly made her clients radiate beauty. Many girls lined up to make dresses that were actually forbidden because they were too revealing. She ran the business secretly, with the owner of the fabric shop. Yeonwo's mother was very disappointed because at her daughter's age, she should already have a family. But in reality, many matchmakers had been chased away by Yeonwo because she always acted as if she were mentally unstable and had a contagious disease. Yeonwo's activity as a seamstress made her servant, Zoal, anxious. Especially if the townspeople found out that a respectable girl like Yeonwo was caught doing work that violated etiquette. However, Yeonwo didn't want to worry about it because she just wanted to pursue her hobby. In the field, a young man named Kang Tae-ha was seen, painting a beautiful girl he adored. The girl looked very much like Yeonwo. His stepmother brought news that soon, she would arrange a marriage for Tae-ha with the girl and set a wedding date. In the field, Yeonwo headed to the shop because she wanted to sew again. Yeonwo was disappointed because the shop owner no longer wanted to do business with her, as many seamstresses had already copied Yeonwo's work. In the palace, the king was furious because the princess was caught wearing revealing clothing. A lady-in-waiting confessed that she got the garment from a tailor in Hanyang. The king then ordered the Minister of Justice to find out about the tailor because it was becoming troubling. Yeonwo once again offered her clothing collection to the shop owner. Unfortunately, at that time, the Department of Justice was conducting an inspection and burned all the clothing deemed inappropriate. The presence of Yeonwo was also known to the authorities, making him a target for immediate capture. Tae-ha Panya realized that Yeonwo was in danger, so he helped him escape. Eventually, on a dead-end street, he met a woman named Bae Soan, who helped him hide in a palanquin.
아무도 보지 못했습니다.
The woman was known as Kwon Mi-young, who was also the owner of the Jising establishment. She claimed to have the ability to see the future, and at that time, she saw the fate that Yeonwo would experience. Without Yeonwo's knowledge, Kang Tae-ha was the man who would become her future husband. Until the day of the wedding, Yeonwo did not know who the man she was going to marry was, unlike Tae-ha, who had known from the beginning. Sewol was taken aback when she saw that her employer's husband was a very handsome young man. On the wedding night, surprisingly, Tae-ha wanted to end the marriage for a shocking reason.
미안합니다.
He admitted that his family had deceived Yeonwo's family because Tae-har had a heart condition that could cause him to die at any moment. Yeonwo seemed unconcerned. She was determined to help Tae-har recover and had no intention of separating. It turned out that before the wedding, Yeonwo had already met Tae-har, and she fell in love at first sight. Tragically, that very night, Tae-har suddenly suffered a heart attack and died instantly. Unfortunately, the misfortune that befell Yeonwo deeply saddened her family, as the wedding had long been their dream. The next day, Tae-har's stepmother came to Yeonwo's house. She accused Yeonwo of hurting her son to the point of losing his life. Yeonwo, who already knew that the woman was pretending, chose to back down. She promised to undergo a 3-year mourning period and stay at her husband's residence. After the funeral, Yeonwo found a wedding decoration that had fallen under the table, and she kept it as a memento. That night, a mysterious man sneaked into Yeonwo's house and kidnapped her. The girl couldn't call for help because her mouth was gagged. It turned out the perpetrator threw Yeonwo's body into a well that was still within the vicinity of her house. Yeonwo sank while holding a flower stem that she accidentally broke off from a tree. Back in the present, Yeonwo finally realized that everything she experienced was not a dream because she was still holding the same flower. Yeonwo thought she had passed through the gateway of life inside the well, allowing her to time travel because she found herself in a different place. Yeonwo was even more confused because Tae-ha didn't recognize her, and now he had changed his appearance. This made Yeonwo increasingly frustrated. Meanwhile, Tae-ha was trying to buy time to find a replacement bride because his grandfather had already arrived at the hotel. Finally, Tae-ha intended to marry Yeonwo because there was no other option at the moment. His conviction grew stronger because at that time, Yeonwo also insisted on considering Tae-ha as her husband. Amidst her confusion, Yeonwo accepted Tae-ha's offer to help her return home. Hong prepared a wedding organizer for the event. They dressed Yeonwo in a beautiful gown that left Tae-ha mesmerized. Yeonwo seemed to struggle to get used to wearing the gown and high heels. Tae-ha asked Yeonwo not to say anything in front of a man who was none other than Mr. Kong.
가죠. 박인우 씨.
Mr. Kong looked very happy to see his beloved grandchild getting married, as it was now just one step away from making Tae-ha the successor of the company. At that time, no relatives came. Suddenly, during the kissing scene, Yeonwo fainted, because she was shocked, having never been that close to the opposite sex before. After the wedding was over, Tae-ha felt relieved because now his grandfather would soon be leaving for America.
잘하세요. 나머진 제가 알아서 할게요.
Tae-ha then met Yeonwo, who had just regained consciousness, to express his gratitude and offer compensation. However, Yeonwo did not accept it. If Tae-ha left her just like that, she chased after him and didn't want to part ways, believing that they were now in another life as husband and wife.
님은 분명 제 서방님이십니다.
Tae-ha tries to explain that they are not in a different realm now, that living in the civilization of the year 2023. Yeonwo mentions his former residence, which has now been transformed into a national cultural heritage site.
조선이었죠. 아주 오래전엔.
Finally, Yeonwo sets aside the reality of where he currently lives, but what is clear is that the man in front of him is the husband she once married in the Joseon era. Yeonwo's behavior leaves Hong astonished, as the girl doesn't even know how to open a door. At that moment, Hong actually intended to take Yeonwo to the hospital because he was worried that Yeonwo might be experiencing amnesia. However, he ends up losing Yeonwo, because at that time Yeonwo's attention was diverted to a woman wearing royal attire.
여기 한양으로. Yes?
Mr. Kang's efforts to appoint Tae-ha as CEO did not go smoothly because he has a second son-in-law named Nae-Naiman, who also wants to inherit his wealth. Nae-Naiman is none other than Tae-ha's stepmother, who is currently handling a business trip to Busan. She was meeting someone to purchase a painting known to be historical, as it originated from the Joseon dynasty. The two of them also discussed Tae-ha's plan to be appointed as CEO. Tae-ha is even about to get married soon. However, Nae-Naiman refuted this, as she believes Tae-ha is still too young to manage the business, and Tae-ha's marriage is still not confirmed for certain. She is confident that even though Mr. Kang has chosen an heir, ultimately, she will be the one to lead the SH group. Upon arriving in Seoul, Nae-Naiman was shocked by the news of Tae-ha's wedding. After receiving some photos, She contacted her biological son named Taemin because she wanted to meet. Taemin, who was at the shopping center at the time, got involved in a bad incident due to Yeonwo's actions. Fearing that Taemin had bad intentions, Yeonwo threw away the money given by Hong, considering it worthless. Hong reported to Taeha that he had lost Yeonwo. Taeha instructed his assistant to check the CCTV around the hotel. He also wanted to ensure Yeonwo's condition before sending him back to his residence. Yeonwo himself was wandering aimlessly on the streets because he had no destination, especially since there was no one he knew. Suddenly, he remembered the Jising's prophecy, that Yeonwo would lose something significant, but he would embark on a long journey to obtain what he desired. A boy approached Yeonwo because his money had fallen out of the bag he was carrying.
돈?
At first, Yeonwo didn't understand why pieces of paper could be called money. But eventually, the boy spent the money on various foods, because at that time Yeonwo admitted he was starving. Suddenly, the boy unexpectedly received a telephone call from his mother, who had just been in an accident because she, unfortunately, hit a girl who looked like Saul. But how Saul could come to the future remains a mystery. With no place to take shelter, Yeonwo stayed at the children's playground, missing his mother and imagining he was sleeping at home. The next day, Taya received a call that her grandfather's surgery was suddenly cancelled. Upon arriving home, it turned out that Mr. Kong was already at Taya's house because he claimed he wanted to meet Yeonwo. Taya then confirmed her grandfather's surgery schedule with a doctor, who informed her that the surgery had been rescheduled for 1 month later. Whether she liked it or not, Taya had to find Yeonwo's whereabouts immediately.
신고 들어온 게 전혀 없답니다.
Yeonwo woke up in a disheveled state and was teased by some children who thought he was literally crazy for sleeping anywhere.
엄마, 여기
Fortunately, Taya obtained CCTV footage of Yeonwo at the convenience store. She immediately went to that place and managed to find Yeonwo. Now Yeonwo no longer considered Taya as his husband, even calling the man a fraud. Once things calmed down, Taya offered Yeonwo to stay at her house for a while, for one day to meet her grandfather.
그러니까 그냥 여기서 얘기하죠.
Having never seen a car before, Yeonwo was very amazed by it and how to get into it. Upon arriving at the house, Yeonwo started to feel carsick, but Mr. Kang mistakenly thought Yeonwo was pregnant.
누구 둘이 벌써?
아니요.
Meanwhile, at her home, Mrs. Min asked about TH's wedding event that was being planned. The next day, Mrs. Min and her son went to TH's house to meet Yongwi. This made TH panic, fearing his secret might be exposed. Yongwi himself was watching a TV show featuring a royal film. He thought it was a gateway for him to return to Joseon. Suddenly, Yongwi was startled by Taemin's arrival.
아, 강태야 취향 독특하다. 씨.
누구냐고.
Taemin was puzzled by Yongwi's strange behavior, and the situation worsened with Mrs. Min's arrival. Suddenly, Yongwi remembered that the woman's demeanor was similar to TH's mother, Tairi, in the past. At his office, TH left in a hurry and crashed into a road barrier because his car tires suddenly burst. He called Bonhan to come and pick him up. TH arrived home just in time and asked Tairi's mother and Taemin to leave immediately. At that moment, Mrs. Min claimed she wanted to deliver a birthday party invitation, Mr. Kong. It was evident that Mrs. Min instructed her son to come to the office just to secure a position and safeguard his share.
오늘 중으로 들어와. 마케팅팀에 자리 하나 줄 테니.
From Yongwi Mangaku's gaze towards her, Mrs. Min assumed that Yongwi Mangaku already knew who she was. They struggled to find the background of Yongwi Mangaku's family, which was said to be an option child. Mrs. Min began to be cautious in case Mr. Kong wanted to appoint TH as CEO at any time. She immediately ordered her trusted person to monitor the company and control the other shareholders. TH reminded Yongwi Mangaku that the contract would soon end, so he could leave the house. Yongwi Mangaku was still stunned by the event he had just witnessed because there was someone near TH now who was exactly like his family lineage in Joseon. He even said he had found a way home.
논리적 증명 좋아하네. 자기도 대답 못하면서.
All of Yongwi Mangaku's nonsense increasingly made TH sick, and he demanded proof if it was true that Yongwi Mangaku came from the past. Yongwi Mangaku became even more annoyed, because TH's character now was completely different from her husband, even though his face was very similar. After sorting through the events, Yongwi Mangaku thought that the only place she could return to was the hotel where she almost drowned. When checking the room, Mr. Hong couldn't find Yongwi Mangaku because the girl had escaped. It turns out Yongwi Mangaku took a taxi to the hotel after being helped by a woman to get a taxi. However, because she didn't have any money, Yongwi Mangaku was taken to the police station. The officers there couldn't help Yongwi Mangaku because she was difficult to question and her statements were so confusing. Yongwi Mangaku became even more frightened when a criminal was about to be interrogated. She then thought that she might indeed be treated like them, and then thrown into prison. Yongwi Mangaku eventually managed to escape just as the police realized that the girl was someone Mr. Hong had been searching for some time ago. It was different at Mr. Kang's residence. His only biological daughter was Mrs. Haryong. At that time, she was caught stealing Mr. Kang's money because she needed to pay hospital bills for someone she had hit some time ago. Unlike Yongwi Mangaku, who was confused by the current civilization, Saul was better able to live his life while he was hospitalized due to the accident. Meanwhile, Yongwi Mangaku's whereabouts were finally discovered by Taeha when she was about to jump into the swimming pool. Thinking of returning to the Joseon era, but Yongwi Mangaku ultimately failed. After observing the tree by the pool, Yongwi Mangaku realized that it was the same tree from his era, because it had a mark from when he measured his height with his grandfather. Yongwi Mangaku knew again how he could return to his old life and reunite with the family he dearly loved, because his life seemed to have been taken away just like that. Taeha then invited Yeonmo to go home because he was going to enter into a marriage contract for 1 month. He wants to officially marry Yeonmo as a real husband and wife. After agreeing on each other's terms, Yeonmo was taken to Taeha's house. Yeonmo only wanted Taeha to help him get home and provide the food he likes.
딱 한 달간 제 아내 역할을 하면 되는 겁니다.
It appears that Taeha is indeed having his heart checked, as it has been beating faster recently, especially when he is close to Yeonmo. At his house, Yeonmo was confused by the cleaning robot, so he couldn't enter because the door locked automatically.
이놈! 걔 멈춰라!
That night, Taeha and Yeonmo grew closer while looking for food at the convenience store. Taeha lent his clothes to Yeonmo, which made Yeonmo feel comfortable wearing them.
내 귀하게 쓰겠어.
The next day, Nayeon received news that the painting she acquired for the exhibition was actually a fake. However, Nayeon deliberately let it happen so that Taeha would be blamed, as Taeha is now the one responsible. She reminded her son again to work at the company and to cherish Taeha's position. However, Taemin did not want to follow his mother's ambitions. He appeared very emotional and ended up breaking a glass, injuring his hand. Taemin then went to see Yeonmo out of curiosity to find out if she was really just Taeha's fake wife. He then invited Yeonmo to Taeha's office to give a surprise. The training that Yeonmo gave him touched Taemin.
가만두면 덧나니까 의원에게 보이고 꼭 치료부터 받으시.
Taehin caused a commotion, and Yeonmo wanted to go home immediately, but at that moment, Taemin stopped her. Yeonmo eventually managed to escape and met Mr. Hong. It turned out that Yeonmo's presence was quite helpful, because at that time Yeonmo was certain about an artwork in the exhibition that turned out to be fake.
이게 유남의 그림이요.
홍 비서,
After getting a confession from his subordinate, Taeha was confused about where to find the original painting, especially since the exhibition was about to open. Yeonmo remembered a hotel and saw the original painting displayed there. Taeha rushed to the hotel, but both of them had difficulty finding it, because the painting had been mixed with items in the storage room. The hotel staff was unaware that they possessed a historical item.
찰나였지만 내 분명히 봤어.
Sometime later, the foreign guests who were going to collaborate with the company finally arrived at the exhibition. They were surprised because the artwork titled of flowers and butterflies was not displayed. Nayeon tried to play the hero at the last minute, claiming he wanted to provide an explanation, but he still cornered Taeha as the person responsible for the exhibition.
What's going on? Oh,
Unexpectedly, Taeha managed to bring the original painting, which left everyone in awe, including Mr. Kang.
잘했다, 강부 대표.
Nayeon continued to try to undermine Taeha. He received information that Vanessa, also known as Kim, had been found, leading to the suspicion that the woman currently claiming to be Taeha's wife is actually a hired wife. Yeonmo explained how he could recognize the original painting because he and the artist had been friends. Taeha finally started to believe Yeonmo's story a little, even though there was no evidence yet. With Yeonmo's help, Taeha treated everyone to a luxurious meal that night. Yeonmo also drank a lot of soju, which made him very drunk.
약주 한잔 해야 하는데.
A surprising incident occurred when Taeha was taking Yeonmo home. The girl suddenly kissed Yeonmo because she dreamed she was reunited with her husband, who had previously failed to spend their wedding night together. The next day, Yeonwoo apologized for being unconscious the night before due to drinking too much. However, he doesn't remember the moment when he kissed Taeha. While at the office, Taeha's mind wasn't focused because he kept thinking about the events of the previous night, leading him to end the meeting early.
아니야! 아니야!
Hong began to notice changes in his boss's behavior. He also discussed Yeonwoo and suspected that the girl was a history drama enthusiast from the local school. He also considered the possibility that Yeonwoo might be experiencing amnesia at the moment.
그 박연우 씨 말인데요.
박윤우 씨요? 왜요?
During breakfast together, Taemin expressed his desire to work at the company. Mr. Kong was very supportive because Taemin had never studied business matters before. Instead, he often spent his time partying and was busy as a social media influencer. Mrs. Min couldn't believe it because at that time Taemin said he hadn't decided whom he would side with.
형?
The whereabouts of Kim Hae-young were finally discovered by Mrs. Min, and she kidnapped the girl to make a deal with her. Yeonwoo's identity began to be probed, and he would soon be removed from Taehaek.
그렇다네요. 예상대로 태학이랑 가짜였어요.
Upon returning to the office, Taehaek was surprised by Yeonwoo's silly antics. Yeonwoo, he became more convinced that something was wrong with Yeonwoo's head and intended to take him to the hospital. Yeonwoo actually felt that he was fine, so he didn't need treatment. However, he eventually complied with all of Taehaek's requests because Taehaek needed to know Yeonwoo's condition before his grandfather's birthday event. Without Yeonwoo's knowledge, Sol was also being treated at the same hospital.
사월이? 그건 누굽니까?
After undergoing a CT scan, the doctor was confident that Yeonwoo's brain was not the problem. However, he was also curious about what was causing Yeonwoo to act strangely. At that time, the doctor was actually concerned about Taehaek's condition and asked about his heartbeat, which had been unstable.
어때? 요새도 자꾸 뛰어?
As they were leaving, a patient suddenly approached Taehaek to ask for help. So, it made Taehaek remember his childhood trauma, when his biological mother was in critical condition and no one helped. Yeonwoo tried to calm Taehaek down, because at that time Taehaek forbade him from contacting the doctor. Since he needed to rest, Taehaek cancelled the meeting that day. Upon returning from the hospital, Taehaek's condition made Yeonwoo worried. Mr. Hom said that his boss was just experiencing stress from being overworked.
아니 뭐 방금 약 먹고 잠들었으니까.
That night, Yeon went to Taehaek's house. Seeing a woman who seemed to have a bad intention, Yeonwoo's instincts immediately stopped her from entering, with the excuse that Taehaek was not at home. Yeon assistant, named Koi, was briefly annoyed by Yeonwoo's audacious behavior.
비키쇼. 됐어.
All night, Yeonwoo stayed with Taehaek, who was delirious, and missing his mother. As Mr. Hom's birthday approached, Hom gave Yeonwoo guidance about the family lineage, as well as a fictional story about the first meeting between Yeonwoo and Taehaek. Yeonwoo prepared a special gift in the form of embroidery that she made with her own hands.
옷은 마음에 드네.
At his house, Mr. Kong was opening a room that contained a collection of antiques, one of which was a painting. The painting turned out to be exactly the same as one that Taehaek had made in the past. So who exactly is Mr. Kang remains a mystery. Meanwhile, Yeon met Kim to testify in front of Mr. Kang, claiming that she is actually Taehaek's real fiancé. She was given a sum of money to conspire.
잘못한 거 없습니다.
그걸 왜 김하영 씨 멋대로...
The day of Mr. Kang's birthday celebration finally arrived, and Yeonwoo was ready with all the questions that would be posed by Taehaek's family. Taehaek's aunt, named Hae-young, greeted her warmly, as did her cheerful child, who turned out to be the little one who had helped Yeonwoo when she was lost. The dinner event went as Yeonwoo expected because Mrs. Min indeed asked about personal issues and discussed her status as an adopted child.
연우, 입양하라고 했지?
Taehan immediately ended the conversation because he was sure Yeonwoo would have difficulty answering it. A few moments later, they were surprised by the family's new servant who broke a glass. It turned out that the woman was Sol, who is now employed by Hae-young.
미끄러졌어요.
Yeonwoo then approached the servant to confirm if she was indeed Sol. Both of them couldn't hold back their tears because they were now trapped in the modern Joseon era. At one point, Mr. Kong wanted to show his valuable painting to Yeonwoo. However, they decided against it at that moment because they had to enjoy the dessert. It turned out that Mrs. Min brought Kim to the event to expose the fake marriage between Taeha and Yeonwoo. It turned out that her subordinates were on their way to bring Kim to Mr. Kang's house. no matter how hard Hong tried to stop him. He couldn't match Koi's martial arts skills. Taiha resigned himself when he saw Kim appear in front of his family, but for some reason, Taemin actually tried to protect Taiha while claiming that Kim was his lover.
제 여자친구예요.
Taemin's actions, of course, made Mrs. Min angry because her son was protecting Taiha while she was trying hard to destroy him.
너 뭐야?
Taiha himself was still very curious about exactly what plan his stepbrother, Hong, was orchestrating. Hong then saw Kim off because she had to go abroad for quite a while. After giving a gift to Mr. Kang, Yeonwoo asked for permission to stay over because secretly he wanted to meet Sol.
고맙다.
Mr. Kang was very happy because Yeonwoo seemed to blend in easily with his family. He even prepared a romantic room for the newlyweds.
합방! 지금 합방하라는 거요.
Taiha then met with Hong, who informed him about Yeonwoo's family lineage during the Joseon era. After recalling all of Yeonwoo's confessions about his identity, everything matched the family lineage of a royal minister, including his former residence. Meanwhile, Yeonwoo was at the back of the house for an appointment with Sol. Yeonwoo was shocked to see someone who resembled the Gizing John Myung. Out of curiosity, Yeonwoo followed where the Gizing went, which led him into the middle of the forest. Unable to find anyone in the darkness of the night, Yeonwoo was actually being targeted by someone hiding behind a tree. Yeonwoo was nearly in danger if Taiha hadn't quickly found his whereabouts, intending to approach Yeonwoo, but both of them slipped, causing them to lose consciousness. Mr. Hong, who knew about the situation, carried Yeonwoo back to the house. Sol's excessive worry made Taiha feel something was off. Had Sol known Yeonwoo before? He then instructed Hong and Sol to leave the room so Yeonwoo could rest. Everything Taiha experienced was so confusing and beyond his comprehension. However, Taiha tried to pay attention to Yeonwoo by treating his wounds. The closeness between Hom and Sol continued to grow, as they had to hide from Mrs. Min, who had just returned home. Mrs. Min had just met with a designer named Midam to present a collaboration proposal. Unexpectedly, Midam turned out to resemble Yeonwoo's mother from the Joseon era.
이 제안서는 강태하 부대표한테 이미 받았는데.
The next day, early in the morning, Yeonwoo was convinced he had returned to the past because Sol woke him up. He told Sol that he saw John Myung in the forest last night, and the woman firmly believed in her heart that he knew how they could return to Joseon. However, Sol thought that the only way they could return was when Yeonwoo got what he truly desired, which was nothing other than spending the night with Taha as a married couple deep down.
돌아가신 서방님이랑 똑 닮은
As a good aunt. Hai Ryong apparently wanted to teach Yeonwoo manners and how to be a good wife. Yeonwoo's pleasant personality instantly overshadowed his shortcomings, such as being very clumsy because he couldn't wash dishes or peel an apple. The rumor of Taha's secret marriage was deliberately brought up by Mrs. Min in front of the shareholders. Some of them even protested the issue, suggesting that Mr. Kong would give the company as a wedding gift to Taha. Amidst the many pros and cons, Mr. Kong suddenly appeared, which made the lady turn pale, because in fact, she hadn't informed the leader about the meeting. They will thoroughly discuss the appointment of Taha as CEO in a meeting after Taha successfully collaborated with one of the designers in the fashion exhibition.
미담하고 진행하는 일 강 부대표가.
Meanwhile, at the office, Secretary Yeon received news that designer Midam rejected the proposal submitted by Taha. Midam is a senior designer who focuses on traditional Korean clothing called hanbok. When informing Taha about the news, Yeon seemed to like her boss, as she was caught staring at Taha while he was napping. A little while later, Mr. Kong met with his beloved grandson. He asked Taha to take his wife abroad to avoid any unwanted incidents.
권력은 공백을 허용하시라.
Taha said he would also handle the rumors about his marriage to Yeonwoo. He then visited a historian to find out about the lineage of a royal minister who lived in the 1500s. It turned out that Yeonwoo's father was a royal scholar who most likely lived in a place that has now been developed into a luxury hotel, the place where Yeonwoo and Taha first met.
글쎄요, 그 이름밖에 남아있진 않은데.
It was also known from a myth that the tree near the pond never bloomed. However, when Yeonwoo appeared, the tree suddenly blossomed. Both of them also suspected that Sol came from the past. After returning from work, Taha saw Yeonwoo looking so charming in traditional Korean clothing. He then said that he believed everything Yeonwoo had said about his identity. Yeonwoo immediately hugged Taeha and pleaded with him not to think badly of him anymore.
고맙소.
The next day, Taemin started working at the company and joined Taeha's team. Meanwhile, rumors about Taeha's marriage were spreading, with the wife's background still in question. It seems like this is the work of Mrs. Min, who wants to attack Taeha.
식 과잉이구나, 생각 이상으로.
Taemin warned Taeha to handle the marriage rumors well to avoid being caught by reporters. Because it turns out, he likes Yeonwoo. Taemin was convinced that Taeha's marriage was just a sham. So he felt it was natural to love Yeonwoo. Surprisingly, Kim, who was supposed to be sent abroad the other day, was actually in Mr. Kang's office. Together with a director, Mr. Kang discussed a project with designer Midam, which seemed difficult for Taeha to secure. Because Mrs. Min had already made her own agreement with him. That evening, after work, Taeha saw Yeonwoo being approached by a stranger while buying food. From now on, he forbade Yeonwoo from meeting anyone without his permission. From a distance, a reporter was taking pictures of the two of them together. Yeonwoo then fixed Taeha's shirt, which had been damaged, by covering it with a patch. Taeha seemed to really like it, even planning to wear it to the office. Now, photos of Taeha with Yeonwoo have spread on the internet. This serves as proof that the two of them have gotten married. It turns out that Yeonwoo's secretary, who has liked Taeha for a long time, started to get jealous. A personal doctor also came to Taeha's office. He explained about the results of Taeha's recent heart examination, which showed that Taeha needs to undergo a second surgery due to a narrowing of the blood vessels. Apparently, Taeha is not ready to do it yet, as he is preparing for the company's anniversary. He also won't give up easily on the plan of the lady who intends to attack him. At that time, the doctor only provided high-dose pain relief medication. My visit to the house, even though it was to Taeha, made Yeonwoo feel happy because I prepared his favorite food. At that moment, Yeonwoo just realized that Taeha had left some documents behind, even though today, he is supposed to have an important meeting.
96칸기 왔어.
The presence of both of them was immediately greeted by reporters because one of the employees recognized Yeonwoo's face. Fortunately, at that moment, Taemin noticed and helped Yeonwoo escape from the reporter's pursuit. While hiding, Yeonwoo saw someone who looked very much like his mother, who was none other than Mrs. Midam. Yeonwoo tried to chase after her, but he lost track when heading to the live event. It turned out that Midam was meeting with Taeha because she decided to reject the proposal. Midam admitted she was more interested in the proposal made by Mrs. May. While about to negotiate, Mrs. Midam accidentally noticed the embroidery on Taeha's shirt. A few moments later, Yeonwoo appeared and immediately hugged Midam, thinking he had met his mother. In the same building, Mr. Khan looked cornered because some directors were very disturbed by the rumors of Taeha's secret marriage. This apparently also affected the sales turnover in several major malls. They were also worried after receiving information that Taeha failed to collaborate with designer Midam. In the hallway, Midam was seen talking with Yeonwoo. Yeonwoo apologized for the misunderstanding, which led to suddenly hugging her.
죄송합니다.
Midam was apparently impressed with Yeonwoo because the girl had an extraordinary talent for making handbooks. She even directly requested the shirt that Taeha was wearing at the time.
하루가 스펙타클합니다.
Not only that, Midam even accepted the collaboration proposal with Taeha. However, with one condition, she wanted Yeonwoo to work on her team. Several directors felt relieved because, thanks to Yeonwoo, they could collaborate with a very famous designer. After the meeting, Taeha tried to endure the pain in his chest. He tried to appear fine in front of Yeon Yemin. He immediately contacted Hong to help divert Yeon Yemin's attention. Taeha then took some medicine and refused to be taken to the hospital.
됐습니까? 저요.
It turns out Midam was interested in collaborating with Yeonwoo because his work reminded her of a piece that is over 200 years old.
200년 정도 된.
200년이요?
Meanwhile, in her room, Yeonwoo was surprised because a flower had wilted and fallen from its stem. She began to wonder if this was a bad omen. Taeha tried to convince Yeonwoo that he needed her help as a designer, outside of their contract as a fake married couple. Finally, Yeonwoo agreed and prepared to go to the company with Taeha. Her appearance, wearing her own designed outfit, left Taeha mesmerized. Previously, Yeonwoo had indeed asked Taeha to provide fabric and all the necessities to pursue her hobby. Yeonwoo was introduced by Midam as part of the team, along with a handsome man named Doyeon.
지쳐있나?
이 두 분이
The closeness between Yeonwoo and Taemin made Taehaek feel uneasy, and Yeonwoo's beauty also caught Dorian's attention.
아까 회의실에선 서운했죠.
쬐끔요.
They then held the dinner events to welcome Yeonwoo to the team. Although most of them had already heard rumors that Yeonwoo was Taehaek's wife, they were waiting for a direct acknowledgement from their boss.
그 땡기네요.
그러다 취해요.
남이사.
Secretary Yeon was annoyed as Yeonwoo turned out to be much more beautiful than her. During the banquet, Yeonwoo's friendliness towards the opposite sex really bothered Taehaek. The manager even praised Yeonwoo and Dorian as a perfect match because they are both good-looking. This immediately made Taemin feel furious. Taehaek then ended the dinner because he was worried that Yeonwoo might kiss someone as she usually does when drunk. Dorian, of course, didn't mind taking Yeonwoo home, but Taehaek wasn't going to let his contract wife go that easily.
연우 씨는 홍비서 차 타고 가는 게 낫겠네요.
He asked Hong to take Yeonwoo home, but in the end, he had to give in because he didn't want to make others suspicious. As it got late into the night, Yeonwoo still hadn't arrived home, which made Taehaek worried and he intended to go after her. At the intersection near the house, Taehaek shouted because he saw Dorian starting to flirt with Yeonwoo.
야!
Openly, Yeonwoo indeed even praised Dorian in front of Taeha as the most exceptional and talented designer who truly and genuinely graduated from abroad. Taeha's words at that time made Yeonwoo upset because Taeha thought Yeonwoo would do something indecent when drunk.
그쪽이야말로 술 취하면 행동에 겁내.
Taeha, who thought Yeonwoo was going to kiss someone, was mistaken because the habit Yeonwoo was referring to was headbutting his drinking buddies. He also thought that the incident with Yeonwoo the other day wasn't due to being drunk, but because of genuine feelings. At the place, Mr. Kong is trying to meet a professional craftsman to repair his work that is starting to become worn out. Mr. Kong also has a watch that is exactly the same as Yeonwoo's. Whether Mr. Kong and Yeonwoo had a relationship in the past remains a question. The next day at the office, the secretary intentionally gave Yeonwoo a lot of tasks, including using the computer. Yeonwoo admitted he couldn't use it because he was very technologically challenged. Taemin helped Yeonwoo, who was running out of ideas for designing his work at that time. He accompanied Yeonwoo to conduct a survey with several staff members from different teams in the company. Finally, Yeonwoo felt helped because he gained a lot of inspiration.
그러면은 너무 덥기도 하고.
The closeness between Taemin and Yeonwoo at the office was so noticeable that it made Mrs. Min upset. She reminded Yeonwoo of his position, which could be sidelined if he was no longer favored. Taemin asked his mother not to interfere in his matters with Yeonwoo because from the beginning, his mother was only targeting Taemin.
소리 지를까 미친놈처럼?
Mr. Kong invited Taeha to his house, where he discussed the director's support for his appointment as CEO. Mr. Kong also asked Taeha not to involve Yeonwoo in the exhibition event. He was worried that it would burden Yeonwoo. However, Taeha said that it was a condition proposed by Midam. For a moment, Taeha's steps halted when he arrived at the family pavilion not far from his grandfather's house. It turned out that the place was the room where Taeha's mother passed away. Mr. Kong hoped that Taeha could overcome the challenges that would arise, including the influence of Mrs. Min, which was difficult to dismantle. He asked Taeha to be patient at least until the group truly fell into his hands. Seeing Yeonwoo's determination in designing works made Taeha confident that she could indeed be relied upon, even though Yeonwoo came from a different century. At the office, Yeonwoo's design was finally approved by Midam as the exhibition theme.
우리 이걸 메인 컨셉으로 하면 어때요?
Mr. Kong once reprimanded Mrs. Min, stating that her true duty and role was to assist Taeha, not to take over the company.
태하를 돕는 게 네 몫이야.
Mrs. Min's memories returned to the past, when her husband, who was also Mr. Kang's son, had not moved on from Taeha's biological mother who had passed away. After an investigation, it seemed that someone had sabotaged Taeha's car, causing him to have an accident in the office parking lot. Han began to worry about Yeonwoo's situation, as she also seemed to be a target. Finally, Taeha admitted in front of all the board of directors that Yeonwoo is his wife who will help make the company's anniversary event a success.
제 아내인 박인우 씨입니다.
Yeonwoo was indeed disappointed because Taeha revealed her status in front of many people, but Taeha argued that it was the only way to protect her from Mrs. Min's malicious plans.
당신을 지키려면 이 방법뿐이었어요.
With someone's help, Yeonwoo finally discovered that the clothing ornament she brought from Joseon had changed color due to exposure during the journey. She remembered that it had indeed been exposed to her husband's breath before he died, leading to the suspicion that someone killed her husband after the wedding took place.
서방님 피가 닿았던 곳이야.
피요?
A little while later, Yeonwoo was startled by the appearance of a colonial who informed her about clues that could help her return to Joseon.
왜 이런 짓을 했어?
그 답은 애기
Upon arriving at the office, Hong was thrown into a panic because Mrs. Min's assistant, named Koi, invited Yeonwoo to go to a certain place. It turned out that he took him to the Kang family's pavilion. Apparently, Mrs. Min deliberately led Taeha into his bad memories of that place. Yeonwoo was initially curious because the pavilion was uninhabited and seemed to hold many ancient collections. Taeha tried to brace himself when entering the room. At the same time, Yeonwoo was almost injured by a falling wooden beam. Taeha's panic attack resurfaced, and he had difficulty breathing. At that moment, Yeonwoo tried to loosen his clothes by undoing his tie. Yeonwoo was shocked to discover that Taeha had a surgical scar on his chest. He seemed jolted by Konyeon's words about a recurring fate he would experience.
실체를 보게 될 거예요.
Back in the Joseon era, Taeha's death was orchestrated by his stepmother because she wanted to seize the family's wealth. One day before Taeha's wedding, she ordered someone to poison him with arsenic acid. The woman was confident that no one would suspect Taeha's sudden death because he indeed had a history of heart disease. The woman's crime now seemed to be repeating itself as fate, just as Taeha also experienced. Yeonwoo was very surprised to learn that Taeha had the same illness as her former husband. She tried to help Taeha reduce his panic attacks due to the trauma of the place where his mother died.
괜찮아요?
일단 나가요. 나가서.
A little while later, Mr. Hong arrived and took Taeha out of that pitch-dark room. Yeonwoo stayed with Taeha all night, who began to calm down due to the effects of the medication.
서방님이셨군요.
The two then talked in the garden, where Taeha was convinced that it was the lady who locked his mother up when she needed help, and in the end, no one came to her aid.
그날 이후
However, because Taeha was still a child at the time, he didn't have the courage to stand up to his stepmother. Deep in his heart, Taeha harbored a great resentment. And to this day, he is determined not to let the lady take what belongs to him. Yeonwoo tried to calm Taeha and promised to always be by his side. But Taeha didn't want Yeonwoo to worry about him because they were only a contract couple.
연우 씨 서방님이 아니니까.
Yeonwoo's concern was justified, as he didn't want Taeha to experience a similar incident to what happened with his previous husband, which was related to a heart condition. However, Taeha didn't really believe in the idea of repeated fate, especially since they were indeed different people.
아니에요.
The next day, Mrs. Min discussed the herbal potion she would prepare for Taeha, considering that Taeha fainted at the pavilion the previous night. Taeha himself was visiting the library that housed historical artifacts from the Joseon era, as he wanted to learn about Yeonwoo's family lineage and his past life.
마당 화분?
Yeonwoo's words turned out to be true, as according to historical records, Gak Dister Sabo lost her husband on their wedding day. Yeonwoo even ended his life by throwing himself into a well. Meanwhile, Yeonwoo just realized that his flower was starting to wilt, which made him quite concerned. Yeonwoo then met with Seol, thinking that if the Great Kingdom, Taeha, was in danger, it was because it was being targeted by his stepmother. Seol actually didn't want Yeonwoo to get involved in Taeha's life. He asked Yeonwoo to stay away from that man's life after the contract marriage ended. He promised to keep working, if indeed they couldn't return to the Joseon era.
애기씨, 당장 발 빼세요.
At his office, Taeha asked Mr. Hong for advice regarding a friend's problem. But in reality, the issue he was describing was his own personal problem with Yeonwoo. It seems Taeha is starting to fall in love with the girl, but Yeonwoo hasn't moved on from her past yet. Hearing Hong's words made Taeha think that he should express his feelings to Yeonwoo soon. Taeha prepared a box of chocolates, but he was still too shy to give it to Yeonwoo. In the end, Yeonwoo misunderstood, thinking that Taeha gave the chocolates to his secretary.
팀원들하고 같이 먹어요.
In the fourth place, Mr. Kang wants to see how Taeha deals with the challenges in his company. He wants to know how Taeha can endure. One day, Yeonwoo was invited to lunch by Mrs. Min. who suddenly wanted to give Tae-ha some herbal medicine, Yeonwol began to muster the courage to oppose all of Mrs. Min's words that had traumatized Tae-ha the night before.
더는 얘기할 필요도 없겠네요.
Tae-ha, upon learning about the meeting, immediately took Yeonwol away. He couldn't understand why Yeonwol so easily agreed to meet with Mrs. Ning.
하연,
The two then headed to a city park while buying some snacks. Because he was too excited watching the show, Tae-ha held on to Yeonwol's body, who almost fell. Finally, he admitted that he had feelings for Yeonwol.
좋아요.
무슨 말을 하는 거예요? 누가 들으면 나 좋아하는 줄 알고.
The relationship between Sol and Hong also grew closer. The two of them planned something to unite Tae-ha and Yeonwol in a true romance.
둘을 을미역처럼.
That night, Hong deliberately invited Tae-ha out. He then wandered alone with Sol, who called him and informed him that Yeonwol was in trouble.
그냥 집에서 찾아보죠.
Checking Yeonwol's whereabouts in the room showed the girl was safe. Sol and Hong then locked them from outside. Tae-ha and Yeonwol almost kissed, caught up in the romantic atmosphere. The same thing happened between Hong and Sol. Madam Min was suddenly informed by her assistant that someone was copying Yeonwol's designs, suspecting that there were others who also disliked Yeonwol being by Tae-ha's side.
박연호 디자인 맞죠?
Hong interrupted the moment between Tae-ha and Yeonwol that night because he also had to deliver the bad news. Tae-ha was troubled because a company had launched a design similar to Yeonwol's first. They suspected that this was Madam Min's doing.
작정하고 한 거네요.
At the office, Yeonwol was scolded by Secretary Yo, accused of not protecting the company's secrets.
따로 잘 보관했는데.
It turned out that Mr. Kang was also disappointed with Tae-ha because from the beginning, he had forbidden Yeonwol from creating the design. He had warned Tae-ha that this could damage his reputation in the company.
마무리하는 거예요.
야, 강태야 임마!
But no matter how much Mr. Kang doubted Yeonwol, Tae-ha and Yeonwol would try to fix the situation. He would not hand over the event to Madam Ming.
책임자인 제가 내린 결정이고
Yeonwol was forced to design the initial dress for the show event. He might be enthusiastic because Tae-ha had high hopes for him.
그러지 말고 나 봐요.
Even though he had very little time, Yeonwol managed to complete his latest work. Yeonwol's design of the blue dress left Madam Min amazed.
꼭 해냈군요.
At that moment, Madam Min felt something was odd about Yeonwol's words because they reminded her of a journal she owned.
염정소설.
The company's anniversary event finally arrived. But once again, someone Yeonwol knew suddenly ruined the dress that had been prepared. Yeonwol had actually resigned himself to the possibility that the show might go on without showcasing his work. It didn't stop there. Problems continued to arise when the modeling agency suddenly canceled their attendance. Overwhelmed by facing two problems at once, Nai Naiman offered to help. Actually, THB TKD didn't want to ask Nai Naiman for help. But there was no other choice. He had to bow to the woman he despised.
도와주십시오.
The model issue was finally resolved, and Yeonwol refused to give up. He asked for 30 minutes to fix the torn skirt and transform it into a jumpsuit. In a different room, Mr. Kong was angry at his grandson for allowing Nai Naiman to help. Secretariat once reminded THB of his decision, and he was disappointed because THB went against his grandfather just to defend Yeonwol. For the first time, Secretariat tried to express his interest in THB. Whether Secretariat was involved in the chaos at the event remains a question. To avoid keeping the guests waiting too long, THB presented a stunning graphic design that perfectly matched the fashion theme. Right on time, the dress designed by Yeonwol was finally showcased. At the closing event, Yeonwol dazzled in a white dress that glowed when paired with the spotlight. The event ultimately succeeded without any significant issues.
가끔 미디어가 되죠. 연예인 센스인데.
Due to exhaustion, THB experienced some chest pain and was then approached by a man named John Myung, who immediately revealed an incident from Yeonwol's past. He finally believed in the concept of recurring fate. THB approached Yeonwoo, who was still around the stage. From that moment on, he decided to love Yeonwoo with all his heart, regardless of her past fate.
연우 씨가 그 사람 흔적
Yeonwoo welcomed THB's embrace because she believed THB was the first person who would change her destiny. The reason Nine deliberately helped THB, the talent, was because she wanted to expose THB's incompetence in front of Mr. Kang. She was sure Mr. Kang would be disappointed because now THB had a different character after meeting Yeonwoo. At that time, she received interesting information that THB was always taking medication for a heart condition.
심장요?
예.
After that incident, both Yeonwoo and THB couldn't sleep. Meanwhile, THB received a call from his personal doctor named Hyun. He asked THB to come to the hospital because there was something important regarding his heart condition. The next day, it turned out that THB wanted to celebrate the success of yesterday's event by taking his team on a trip to Jeju Island. Not forgetting, Yeonwoo invited Sol because he wanted to share the happiness. THB introduced Sol as Yeonwoo's friend. Actually, THB was surprised because the housekeeper at his home had apparently known Yeonwoo for a long time. During the long flight, Yeonwoo was amazed by the view from above the clouds. In short, the group arrived at the exotic island and enjoyed the fresh air by the beach. THB admitted that his life was no longer lonely since Yeonwoo's arrival. They had fun and made many toys. THB seemed increasingly captivated by the beauty radiating from Yeonwoo. That evening, they continued with the barbecue dinner. Because life was so enjoyable, Sol expressed his desire to Yeonwoo for both of them to remain in this moment. He was also curious about how far the relationship between Yeonwoo and THB had progressed. In his opinion, Yeonwoo should accept the love signals that THB was giving if he truly loved her. This made Yeonwoo feel awkward because that night they had to share a room. Thinking that TH would try to seduce her, Yeonwoo was disappointed when TH actually intended to sleep on the floor.
괜찮다니까. 자도 됐는데.
However, just seeing Taha's sleeping face was enough to make Yeonwoo feel at peace. The next day, Sol was annoyed because, as it turned out, Yeonwoo and Taha hadn't done anything the night before. He tried to convince Yeonwoo to be more aggressive in approaching the super cool Taha.
아니, 왜? 꽃다운 우리 애기실 두고 왜?
In reality, Taha deeply loves Yeonwoo, but he is worried that he can't make her happy. Meanwhile, with Sol, Mrs. Min finally found out that the operation Mr. Kang was supposed to undergo was just a charade. Because in reality, he is healthy, Mr. Kang apparently lied to hasten Taha's marriage. Based on the calm demeanor of the family doctor, she also learned a fact that Taha is suffering from a chronic heart condition. Eventually, Mrs. Min held a board of directors meeting, which made Mr. Kang angry. She revealed Taha's heart condition, which automatically disqualifies him from being the CEO of the company. Moreover, she even proposed to remove Taha from his current position as vice CEO. Mrs. Min believes that the company is not solely owned by Mr. Kang, so he cannot make decisions on his own.
태하를 해임시켜.
네.
A director informed Taha that if a major issue arises in the company, it could threaten his position, and even news of his heart condition has already become widely known. Once again, Taha experienced chest pain, requiring him to take heart vasodilator medication. Dr. Yun contacted Taha, telling him he must go to Seoul immediately because the results of the x-ray from the other day are very concerning. Taha finally returned to Seoul earlier than planned, intending to say goodbye to Yeonwoo. While at the beach, they saw a couple about to have a pre-wedding photo shoot. This reminded Yeonwoo of the embarrassing incident during the wedding, where Yeonwoo fainted while kissing. At that moment, Yeonwoo admitted not wanting to lose Taha. Unexpectedly, Taha actually wanted to end the marriage contract and asked Yeonwoo to stay in a house he had prepared. Taha admitted that he had no intention of dating because he was too busy with work.
분위기에 휩쓸려서 그런 거예요.
Taha's statement left Yeonwoo very disappointed, as if their closeness and everything they had done together meant nothing to Taha. Yeonwoo considered Taha a deceiver who had played with his feelings.
우리 그만 계약 종료하죠.
That night, Yeonwoo also just found out that Taha had returned to Seoul without informing him first. Dr. Yin then took Taha to a professor who explained Taha's current health condition, where his heart disease was worsening, putting him at risk of stroke and attack. If Taha becomes exhausted and too stressed, Dr. Yun became increasingly frustrated, feeling he had failed to cure Taha, especially since recently, Taha admitted his heart was beating irregularly after meeting a woman.
판단이 고장난 거 맞나 봐요.
Taha also felt devastated. At a time when his life could end at any moment, his mind couldn't escape from Yunwo, whom he truly loved.
이거 맞죠?
In front of Mr. Kong, Taha admitted that his marriage to Yunwo was just a contract on paper. Actually, Taha still felt concerned about his heart surgery with his grandfather, but it turned out that Mr. Kong had known about it for a long time, and that was the reason he wanted Taha to get married quickly. For now, Mr. Kong agreed with Taha ending his relationship with Yunwo. Taha must prepare to face the shareholders' meeting to determine his future in the company. That same day, Yunwo packed her things and left Taha's house. She also wrote a farewell note on a piece of paper. Mr. Kong was forced to lie to Taha, who was worried about Yunwo's condition. In fact, at that time, Yunwo was actually staying at his house. Sol appeared upset because Taha had just abandoned Yunwo. This also made Mr. Hong refuse to accept his boss being called a coward. At the office, Taha was continuously pressured about what steps he should take because the board of directors was about to approve his dismissal. Taha asked Hong to inform Yunwo about his heart condition and his dismissal from the company. In the land where Yunwo actually received the honor from Mrs. Midam and SH Company to design his own collection for the opening of a gallery in New York. However, at that time, Yunwo was still considering it.
제가 그래도 될까요?
While working as a housekeeper at Mr. Kang's family home, Sol accidentally saw Mr. Kong holding a watch believed to be the same as Yunwo's from the Joseon era. That night, Sol sneaked out of the house to visit Yunwo. Taemin eventually found out that Yunwo was having issues with Taeha, so he was staying at Mr. Hong's house. Yunwo asked Taemin to keep his move a secret from his co-workers. Earlier, Taemin even said that he liked Yunwo, no matter what happened. He also drew the moment when the two of them met for the first time, and everything Yunwo did at the office. One night in a quiet place, Mrs. Min ordered someone to spread rumors about Taeha's contract marriage, and his plan to resign due to heart disease. Switching to Yunwo, who just had a nightmare. That seemed to remind him of a man who pushed him into a well. He felt unfamiliar hearing that voice. Mr. Holmes' efforts to track down the person who leaked Yunwo's designs finally bore fruit. He discovered that it was Secretary Yola who did it. The woman was also proven to have damaged a dress made by Yunwo. Taeha asked Mr. Hong to meet with Secretary Yal and terminate her immediately.
패션쇼를 망치려고 했던 범인을 찾았습니다.
Taeha's decision saddened Secretary Yola, as Taeha even refused to meet with her again. Secretary Yola was seen contacting someone who seemed very influential. The man Secretary Yal met turned out to be Mr. Kong. Mr. Kong had long asked Yola for help in supervising his grandson. However, since she was no longer needed, he asked Yola to abandon her hopes. Moreover, Taeha also did not sympathize with the woman. At her office, Yola accidentally shared an elevator with Mr. Hong. Hearing the man's voice reminded Yal of the person who wanted to get rid of her in the Joseon era. Taemin informed that Mr. Hong worked for his mother as her right-hand man. At the location where Mrs. Midam met with Taeha, she mentioned that there was a client who wanted to meet Yal, impressed by her work at the recent fashion show. Mrs. Midam was going to be busy with the launch of her product overseas, and she asked Taeha for permission to allow Yunwo to join. Yunwo heard Hong and his brother. Taeha is experiencing difficulties in the company. Then, Yunwo wanted to meet Taeha. He knew, and it seemed this was the reason he kept Taeha at a distance.
그게 무슨 소리야?
In the midst of the rain, Taeha actually had the same intention to meet Yunwo and apologize. Taeha promised not to disappoint Yunwo and to stop being a selfish man. The two of them have now reconciled, and Taeha took Yunwo back to his home. When they had some free time, Taeha took Yunwo to a place that Yunwo had always wanted to visit. Yunwo looked very happy, especially when Taeha kissed him. Meanwhile, at the office, Mrs. Midam watched a video recording made by Taeha. Taeha admitted that he indeed had a heart condition and was ready to be removed from the company. After a vote, he also proposed that the company should not be run solely by his family, and suggested opening opportunities for other management to lead the company. This made Mrs. Midham concerned because her position could be threatened.
이식한 채 살아왔습니다.
While Sol was packing Yeonwo's clothes, Mr. Hong mentioned an event from Yeonwo's past, which, according to historical records, indicated that he had ended his life. Sol felt there was a discrepancy between the story and Yeonwo's account of the mysterious man who approached him. He was convinced that someone wanted to create an alibi for Yeonwo's death as a suicide incident.
아니야. 애기 씨가 분명히
That made his curiosity grow even further, and he wanted to verify if the object Mr. Kong was holding was indeed Yeonwo's ancient watch. After searching through every cabinet, Sol was shocked to find that the object was identical to Yeonwo's. Yes, he was sure that in the past, it was the Tayo family who wanted to eliminate Yeonwo. Coincidentally, Yeonwo was indeed at Mr. Kang's family home, and he learned about Sol's discovery and opened his watch. The object emitted a clue in the form of a butterfly, which eventually led Yeonwo to a cemetery in the forest behind Mr. Kang's house. Yeonwo met Chan Mayong, who revealed to him the answers to the questions that had been on his mind all this time. Yeonwo suddenly saw events from the past. He discovered that it was his stepmother who killed him with the help of a servant. Not only that, after Yeonwo disappeared from the Joseon era, his parents also experienced misfortune.
이걸 타서 먹이게.
The mystery of Yeonwo falling into the well during the Joseon era was finally revealed. A day after Yeonwo disappeared, his body was found in the well. Yeonwo's mother was devastated because her family couldn't even see Yeonwo's face for the last time, because at that time, it was said that part of his face was already destroyed. A few days after her daughter's death, Yeonwo's mother was still grieving to the point where she refused to eat. A few days later, she experienced physical weakness and eventually passed away. Yeonwo's father's grief deepened when he saw the memorial stone for his daughter's death, which reinforced the rumor that Yeonwo had indeed died by suicide. At that time, there was also a mysterious man who killed Yeonwo's father. Back to the present. After having visions of his family's past, Yeonwo lost consciousness in the same place where his father died 200 years ago. In the pages of a journal belonging to Mrs. Midham, a new story from the past mysteriously appeared. Seeing his friend lying weak, Sol was disappointed in Taiha, because it turned out that his ancestors' family intended to kill Yeonwo in the distant Joseon era.
도련님 집안에서 죽이려고 했잖아요.
At first, Mr. Hong couldn't believe Sol's testimony because everything felt confusing to him. After discovering the oddities in the journal, Mrs. Midham finally realized that Yeonwo was a girl from the past, because she also descended from Yeonwo's biological mother.
정말 연우 씨였군요.
Mrs. Midham even still keeps an embroidered cloth from Yeonwo, passed down through generations, as well as a journal whose contents changed suddenly.
어머니가
It turns out the journal was the diary of Yeonwo's biological mother, which she wrote after losing her beloved daughter. In the end, Yeonwo felt guilty because she was the reason her parents experienced the tragic event. Yeonwo mentioned the sequence of events that happened to her in the past, starting with her husband's death due to poisoning.
그게 무슨 말이에요?
That night, a woman named Chan Myung approached Tiha to show him the events he experienced in the past. She then warned Tiha to stay away from Yeonwo's life, as she didn't want to experience a repeated fate. However, Tiha insisted that he would always be by Yeonwo's side, even willing to sacrifice himself to protect her.
원하는 게 뭐냐고요?
The next day, Hong invited Sol to visit Yeonwo, and Sol apologized for speaking rudely to Tiha the previous night. This time, he would take care of Yeonwo by cooking her favorite dishes.
맛있다. 고마워.
Surprisingly, Mr. King suddenly wanted to kick Mrs. Min out of the company and the family home.
뭐 하시는 거예요, 지금?
Mrs. Min appeared frustrated with her father's decision. Mr. Hong offered a way to get rid of Tiha that involved his heart condition. However, at that moment, Mrs. Min seemed reluctant to discuss it.
산 송장인데
Tiha then carefully checked Yeonwo's memorial stone in a forest, absolutely convinced that history has now changed because Yeonwo discovered the hidden truth.
역사가 바뀐 거겠죠.
Tiha then expressed to Mr. Kang his intention to step back from the shareholders' meeting after successfully ousting Mrs. Min. Tiha also intends to keep Yeonwo by his side. Hearing Tiha's reason for not wanting to continue the company naturally made Mr. Kang very angry.
뭘? 사인?
이제 연우 씨랑
That night, Tiha invited Yeonwo for a walk in the park near their home. He also talked about John Myung's appearance a few days ago. Tiha was forced to lie about John Myung's warning because he didn't want Yeonwo to worry.
연우 씨 곁에 있으라고.
Meanwhile, at his home, Taemin was also informed by his grandfather that he had to accompany his mother to move out of town. Hearing his grandfather's decision, Taemin persuaded his mother to follow all his instructions. However, at that time, Mrs. Min said that she would not give up, considering the efforts she had made for the SH company all this time.
할아버지 완전히 돌아섰어. 이제 끝이라고.
In fact, Taemin was very worried about Yeonwo's situation amidst his family conflict. He then met with Tiha at the office to ensure whether Tiha could take good care of Yeonwo because he could handle it as well.
소복이 알아서 챙겨라.
Despite Hong's assistance, it eventually proved fruitless, and he informed Tiha that there was a man who had been stalking both of them all this time. He then planned something with Saul to install a tracking device in the suspect's car. At one point, a client from the American Congress who wanted a design from Yeonwo finally arrived in Calorinio Nyamatum. Yeonwo seemed familiar with both of them because the woman resembled a lady-in-waiting and a princess from the Joseon era. That night, Tiha picked up Yeonwo from work and with a beaming smile. Yeonwo recounted what he experienced that day. Only the encouragement given by Tiha made Yeonwo even more enthusiastic.
누가 보면 어쩌려고 그래요?
The next day at the office, Mr. Hwang was still waiting for further instructions from Naeun. The woman didn't mention anything specific. She just wanted Tiha to be unable to do anything against her.
그나저나 어쩌죠?
On the 4th floor, Secretary Yo confessed to Yeonwo that she was the one who had ruined Yeonwo's design. The woman apologized and intended to resign after this.
사람 마음이 그저 그런 걸로도
The reason Secretary Yo wanted to bring Yeonwo down was, of course, because she felt jealous. However, Yeonwo instead asked her to make amends by organizing the purse conference event that the company was going to hold. A few days later, the SH team prepared for the purse conference event with members of Congress from America. This was also done as an initial step to open a business in New York.
처음 뵙겠습니다.
It turned out that the mysterious Priya had injected poison into the drink that was going to be given to Tiha. Priya also disguised herself as a waitress. Meanwhile, in his office, Mr. Hwang reported to Mrs. Min that he had taken good care of Tiha. He was confident that this time, Tiha's story would end. When the event started, Priya was left curious because Tiha did not show any effects after drinking the poison. Before escaping, Mr. Hwang was already prepared to ambush her. In fact, earlier, he had already replaced Tiha's drink bottle because he realized something was wrong. Tiha and Mr. Hwang then brought Priya before Mrs. Min. Mr. Hwang seemed to want to wash his hands of the problem. He said that everything he did was under Mrs. Min's orders.
민 대표님께서 어떻게든 처리하라고 해서.
Hearing his words left Mrs. Min very surprised, because previously, she hadn't given any orders. But because of the evidence already in Tiha's hands, she resigned herself to the possibility that Tiha would report her to the police. It seems Mr. Hwang indeed had his own agenda to destroy Mrs. Min and Mr. King. A few days ago, Mr. Hwang had indeed recorded the incident. When Mr. Hwang and the mysterious Priya met, not wanting to be cornered in this issue, Mrs. Min met with Tiha and exposed all of Mr. Kang's wrongdoings. If it was Priya who actually locked her mother in the pavilion, leading to the woman's life being beyond saving.
도와주려고 했어!
On the night when Tiha's mother was killed, it was Naeun who intended to help. However, she was afraid of being caught. She fled, causing Tiha to misunderstand. The reason Mr. Kang wanted to get rid of his daughter-in-law, Talent, was because he wanted to marry his son to Naeun. At that time, Naeun came from a fairly influential family, which was greatly needed by the SH company. Naeun's words made Tiha's chest hurt, and Yeonwo asked the woman to leave the room because he and Tiha didn't believe the words coming out of her mouth.
그만하세요!
The scene shows that during the Joseon era, Tiha's stepmother was often belittled by fellow Won people, because no member of the family succeeded in becoming a civil servant. She became frustrated when she found out that her son, Timon, spent more time painting and refused to take the state exams.
과거 시험이 코앞인데 허구한 날 뭐 하는 게야?
This made her in-laws angry and intended to kick them out, as they weren't the successors of the Kang family. Back to the present, Saul actually felt suspicious, because the criminal who wanted to harm Tiha was caught too easily. However, Lord Hong said that Saul shouldn't overthink. At home, Yang-wol still couldn't believe what Mrs. Min said. He remembered an item in the pavilion that seemed to belong to Tiha's biological mother. Yang-wol then handed the item to Tiha so he could keep it.
어머님 거요.
After understanding Yang-wol's mother's diary from the Joseon era, there's a part of history unchanged. So both are convinced there's a part Tiha has unresolved, namely his issue with his grandfather. Frankly, Tiha fears asking about the truth about his mother's death. As Lord Kang claims, it was all orchestrated by Mrs. Min. Seeing Mrs. Min still in his house makes Lord Kang furious. He even threatened not to give shares to Taemin if his mother continued to act up. Even though he never expected Taemin's presence, Lord Kang still shows compassion towards Taemin, because after all, Taemin is Jang Han's son. A little while later, Mrs. Nin called her granddaughter regarding the issues happening in the family. She asked Taemin to stay at a hotel temporarily because she had already informed Taiga the truth about Lord Kang's actions.
미쳤어.
Seeing the affection between Taiga and Yang-woo during the live broadcast made the secretary feel awkward. However, Yang-woo tried to ease the tension between them by discussing work. The secretary finally admitted that all this time, they were assigned by Chairman Kang to spy on them. They now realized they had betrayed such good people like Taiga and Yang-woo, who had trusted them so far.
마케팅팀에 들어간 후로 회장님 명령으로 출근.
Burdened with questions in his mind, Taiga went to see his grandfather at home. He then brought up the old wound of his mother's death, which he now believes was his grandfather's doing.
할아버지! 그게 와!
At that time, Chairman Kang admitted that he did it for the sake of his own son's future, who was then distracted by matters of women and neglected the company. Now he intends to do the same to Taiga, who has started to rebel.
연우 씨랑 저
Taiga intends to sever family ties with Chairman Kang because he was used as a puppet to fulfill his grandfather's dreams. Yeonwoo met Taiga at his grandfather's house and heard of her husband's deteriorating condition.
괜찮아요?
A doctor examined Taiga and finally explained the situation, stating that Taiga must be taken to the hospital immediately. The doctor also explained why Taiga's condition has worsened over the past 3 months. Yeonwoo wondered if this was related to her appearance in the new Joseon world. One night, the witch Mayang visited Yeonwoo and said that there is actually a way for Yeonwoo to return to Joseon because every 3 months, a single flower petal will fall, allowing Yeonwoo to count how long she still has the opportunity. He also explained in detail the consequences if Yeonwoo stayed in the new Joseon, which could cause Tiha's heart to stop beating. Seeing the growing rift between Tiha and his grandfather made Yeonwoo want to meet Mr. Kang. At that time, Mr. Kang was seen planning something, because the next day, Yeonwoo would be coming to his house.
제가 댁으로 가겠습니다.
The next day at the office, Mr. Hong suddenly disappeared, following the poisoning incident some time ago. Tiha then asked Hong to track and investigate his family. Afterwards, Tiha met Tiha on the office rooftop, wanting to apologize for his mother's mistake. Even though Tiha was sure his mother wouldn't have the heart to poison Tiha, he asked Tiha to investigate further. The meeting between Yeonwoo and Mr. Kang did not go smoothly. Mr. Kang initially showed a painting belonging to an ancestor, which turned out to look very similar to Yeonwoo's face.
어릴 때 아버지 화랑에서 보고.
However, slowly, Mr. Kang cornered Yeonwoo as the reason for Tiha's change in behavior, as if Yeonwoo's arrival was exactly like Tiha's biological mother, which he believed would become a big problem. Yeonwoo did not hesitate to kneel in front of Mr. Kang because he wanted to mend the family relationship. Unfortunately, that night, Yeonwoo was suddenly kidnapped and taken to a warehouse, as if his fate was repeating itself.
킨 거요. 할아버님이요.
At that time, Tiha received a message from someone, saying they saw a man taking Yeonwoo to a place. Tiha immediately headed to the mentioned location while contacting the police. Now, Mr. Kang's men were going to take Yeonwoo to a remote place, so he could no longer be in contact with Tiha. When he managed to find an opportunity to escape, Yeonwoo looked for a way out, but it turned out that the entire area was surrounded by several men in black. With a wooden stick, Yeonwoo tried to fight back, but in the end, his body was thrown against the ruins of the building. Fortunately, just when Yeonwoo was out of strength, Taeha arrived to save him. After bringing Yeonwoo home, Taeha asked Mr. Hong to take care of his wife, as he was going to meet the grandfather. Meanwhile, Mr. Kong himself received an uninvited guest, who was none other than Mr. Hong. It turned out that the man harbored a deep grudge against Mr. Kong, because many decades ago, unfortunately, his sick wife did not receive treatment from the doctor, as the hospital prioritized operating on Mr. Kang's child, who had far more power and money. Hwang accused Mr. Kong of being the only person responsible for the death of his beloved wife. Hearing this left Mr. Kong bewildered, because it was actually not his fault. Moreover, he had already provided appropriate compensation. Taeha tried to protect his grandfather, kneeling in front of Mr. Hong to ask for forgiveness for the leader's past mistakes. But overwhelmed by emotion, Mr. Hong struck Leader Kong on the head with a vase, leaving him sprawled. Mr. Hong was eventually thrown into prison. A few days later, Leader Kong seemed to be improving, but he suffered from amnesia and didn't recognize anyone. Seeing Taeha's deep love for him, Yeonwoo recalled Promul Chan Myong's words that she must return to Joseon if she wants Taeha to stay alive. While still in the future, Yeonwoo tried to reconcile the relationship between Taeha and Taemin by organizing a gathering with her nephews.
이게 다 뭐야?
Yeonwoo then met with Mrs. Midam to give her the ancestors' journal, because it turned out that none of the stories had changed. Therefore, Yeonwoo had no choice but to go to Joseon to save Taeha. Meanwhile, at the company, Taeha felt uneasy because now some of the directors were siding more with Mrs. Min to be appointed as the leader. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Min actually submitted her resignation letter. She handed over the company to Taeha, who can now manage it well. Nayeon asked Taeha to ensure that Taemin stays with the company.
민 대표,
Taeha never imagined he would truly have to hear Hyunwoo's last words, which meant he had to leave. Forever. Taeha didn't care about his heart condition because he couldn't live without Hyunwoo by his side.
장난 아니죠?
이제 돌아가려고요.
Taeha then called Dr. Hyun, asking him to find any medicine or treatment that could cure him. On the other hand, Sol was saddened by the reality of Hyunwoo's return because she had grown comfortable living in the present and had found a man who intended to marry her. With a look of sadness, Sol shared this with Mr. Hong. Meanwhile, Taeha seemed to just ignore Hyunwoo because Hyunwoo was behaving in a normal manner even though they would soon part ways. Hyunwoo reminded Taeha that they only had 2 weeks left, so Taeha should make the most of it.
그럼 맨날 울고불고 그래요? 아무리
The next day, Taeha gave a file containing a fake birth certificate so that Sol could make an ID card and stay in the future. Hyunwoo apparently had no intention of ruining Sol's happiness. Taeha took Hyunwoo to various places so that they could have memorable moments together. Taeha gave a necklace to Hyunwoo, promising never to forget the girl who changed his life.
나도 고마워요.
A week passed, and Hyunwoo had an interview about the boutique he was going to open with Mrs. Midam. They were impressed because Hyunwoo was not only beautiful but also confident and full of charisma.
요새 섬세하게도 예뻐진 것 같지 않아?
After spending the whole day with Taeha and eventually sleeping together, the next day Hyunwoo woke up in the Joseon era. He was very happy because he could be reunited with his mother.
예언우야.
It turned out that Hyunwoo truly had a chance to change his destiny, because that day was exactly 10 days before his wedding was to take place. He sent a message to the person he was arranged to marry, who had a face similar to Taeha.
여도남자.
Even though it was too painful to say, Hyunwoo wanted to tell that man that his stepmother intended to poison him. Hyunwoo gave an object made of silver so that Mr. Mutaking could check whether the potion he was going to drink contained poison. Hyunwoo's wedding day finally arrived. On the wedding night, Mr. Mutaking experienced an incident that Hyunwoo had seen before, where the man coughed and vomited blood. Hyunwoo's family once again relived the event when Hyunwoo was treated harshly by Mr. Mutaking's mother. However, now Hyunwoo appeared more resilient than before because the woman wanted to oppress him. That night, Hyunwoo had also prepared reinforcements in case someone intended to harm him.
Hyunwoo was able to be saved while the man couldn't escape from the crowd that chased him into the middle of the forest. Hyunwoo even joined the chase out of curiosity about who had given him the orders. Mr. Mutakang's mother was put on trial for allegedly poisoning her stepson and sending a servant to harm Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo's efforts to save her husband turned out to be successful, as Mr. Mutakang was still alive. To expose his stepmother's crime, Mr. Mutakang had previously taken an antidote, which allowed him to stay alive and hide for several days. The servant who harmed Hyunwoo was also punished, while the woman received a whipping sentence and was exiled to Terrapancil Island.
사명이라뇨!
After experiencing a rough start to his marriage, Mr. Mutakang intended to maintain his marriage with Hyunwoo, as she was the girl he had longed for.
그대와 부부의 연을 이어나가고 싶어요.
Feeling the injustice in her case, Hyunwoo approached the king and the queen mother, who were traveling at the time. In fact, the king had already heard about Hyunwoo's case and believed that all the perpetrators had been punished. Hyunwoo pleaded with the king to reconsider the title of virtuous woman, as it turned out many were misusing it to gain power.
박연우라 하옵니다.
To calm himself, Yeonwoo stopped by his uncle's house in the village of Sebrang. He expressed his desire to divorce because Yeonwoo's heart belonged to someone else, none other than Taeha. Mr. Mutakang also often visited Yeonwoo, who was isolating himself at that time. He spent time with Yeonwoo doing many things. Until one day, Mr. Mutakang's illness relapsed, and it seemed he wouldn't be able to hold on much longer.
어찌 그러십니까?
Mr. Mutakang finally took his last breath in Yeonwoo's arms. Before he passed away, he said he wanted to be reborn as a man who looked just like him. He also hoped to be reunited with Yeonwoo in Bali.
그대도 날 봐주겠지요.
Meanwhile in Korea, Taeha was very shocked because when he woke up, Yeonwoo had truly disappeared. At his office, Taeha claimed that Yeonwoo was traveling to Milan for designer-related matters.
출국한 지 일주일 됐죠.
When he checked with his personal doctor, Taeha's heart was now fine, even healthier than a few days ago. It was as if Taeha's fate had changed because Yeonwoo had saved his life in the past.
다행이네요, 그럼.
다행?
Yeonwoo's boutique officially opened, and Taeha tried to hold back his sadness because he believed Yeonwoo had now found happiness in the Joseon era. Taemin's seriousness in helping Taeha manage the company began to show.
좋았지. 의상 체크.
Taeha gave Mr. Han a wedding gift in the form of a business place for Saul to sell cakes. He also invested his wealth to buy a hotel, which was also the place where Yeonwoo appeared. 1 year later, Taeha still indeed believed that Yeonwoo would keep her promise to return. Back in the Joseon era, after the mourning period, Yeonwoo's mother invited her daughter to return home because the situation was unsafe, because the kidnapper, who was previously going to be executed, was reported to have escaped.
덕구가 도망을 쳤다고요?
Yeonwoo's mother's worries truly came true. That night, the man intended to take revenge on Yeonwoo and wanted to kill her. When the opportunity arose, Yeonwoo untied her hands and tried to escape. Unfortunately, her escape led to a cliff. Yeonwoo chose to jump into the sea rather than die at the hands of that man. A miracle happened because Yeonwoo now lives in the future. She met Taeha in the same place after being separated for 1 year. The two of them then held a real wedding and lived happily. That's the storyline of the film from Presap Sorry. For those of you who like it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
이대로 다 잊어야 하는 걸까요?